This episode is for the moms, but especially the single moms. We're going to discuss real life self care strategies and talk about being a single mom and that transition from a relationship to being a single mom to then potentially being in a relationship again, and how to find time for yourself and how to support yourself. So grab your cocktail, grab your wine, grab your coffee. I don't give a fuck what you grab. Just grab something, take that hot bath or go for a drive, and let's sit down and talk. Okay, so let's be honest. Motherhood is a journey. It is hard, it is overwhelming, and it can be very emotionally draining, whether you have a partner to do it with or not. A little background on myself. I was married for about almost 4 years, but during that time, I was separated for a year, and I was also pregnant with my second child and basically being a single mom. Although I was not yet a single mom, I was a single parent, and single parents face a lot of similar challenges, including that financial difficulties, emotional struggles, and feeling that lack of support. So for me personally, I had a lot of those financial difficulties. I at one time was working 3 jobs, and I always had 2 jobs at one point because he didn't want to work. He claimed that he couldn't work. And at that time, we shared a bank account, which he was taking money from and leaving me constantly drained financially and leaving me to kind of fend for myself and ask for help from my mom and dad, which made me feel really vulnerable and guilty. So it just really took an emotional toll on me. Because I lacked that physical and emotional support from him, I did a lot by myself. I took my son everywhere with me. I even remember at one point I had to go to the hospital because I passed out while I was pregnant with my daughter. And I had to take my son in the ambulance with me because my ex-husband did not want to come to the hospital because hospitals made him feel uncomfortable. So there I was, 8 months pregnant with my baby, and also my 3-year-old sitting in the chair, just not knowing what's going on and having to have nurses come in to help because my ex-husband would not show up. Another thing I felt really guilty for is my ex-husband being abusive emotionally and physically, and that led to a lot of guilt I had as far as not being able to provide my kids with a 2-parent home. And that's, I talk about this in my story when I share what happened and the trauma I went through in that relationship. And I don't want to get into it too much, but I just really struggled with the fact that I was married, but I was single parenting with someone who didn't want to show up and be a parent. And now it all makes sense. Everything, if you go back and listen to that, or if you know my story, it all makes sense now, but it didn't at the time. And it felt really lonely and I felt really isolated. So when I became an actual single mother, it really didn't feel that much different for me. It actually felt kind of like a relief because that constant fear of what's going to happen and that constant fear of is somebody going to get hurt wasn't there anymore. But that doesn't mean it wasn't hard because it really was. I had to move halfway across the state and start over. And, I had a really abusive ex-husband who was so controlling and so scary to me at the time. And so I just wanted to protect my kids, but it still was really hard to feel like I was away from him, even though physically I was, distance wise I was, but emotionally it felt like I was still being held back and being held captive. That's honestly kind of the best way I can explain it. Thankfully, I had a really good support system with my mom and dad, and I only lived a couple of blocks away from them. And I do know that not all single moms have that support, but for me, sometimes it felt like too much support. I wanted to be independent. I didn't know how to be independent because when I was with my ex-husband, it was a lot of control. And that relationship really took a toll on my mental health and my self-worth. And I really felt like I had to prove something. So I would try to sometimes not ask for help, but then I would be so emotionally dysregulated that I would end up relying on my parents for that help. And as a mom, I felt really guilty for leaving my children with my mom and dad while I went to go work overnights at a jail where I worked in juvenile corrections, and then I would come home during the day and I would run a daycare. And that time, I never had time to myself, I felt like, during the day because I was with kids at night and then I was with kids during the day. And although my parents gave me so much time and they gave me so much support, I honestly just felt like a failure. I couldn't make my marriage work at the time. That was my thinking. And I didn't understand that it wasn't my fault. I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of shame around being a single mom. And I think that's something that other single moms can relate to is the shame. We, even as moms in general who are married or have a relationship, we feel so much shame when we feel that we can't perform to society's standards or we don't meet a certain society expectation. Some challenges that I faced as a single mom include things like the financial strain. I had to balance that work and childcare. And although I ran a daycare, I had to find what worked for me as far as being able to go buy groceries and being able to pay bills and being able to have enough gas to get to a to go drop off my kids. It just felt like a lot of stress. And that for me led to a lot of social isolation. Even though I was back in my hometown of and I had a lot of friends and support, I just felt so lonely. I felt isolated. I felt like no one understood what I was going through, even though I had friends who were experiencing the same thing. And that kind of led me to that guilt. I felt guilty for leaving my kids, but I also felt guilty for taking time to myself. And that is something I think all moms can relate to, whether you're single or whether you're married, or whether you're single parenting and married. So, first, build that support network, relying on those family and friends that you have, or even community groups, social networks, to really provide that emotional security and that validation as far as support and feeling seen and heard and feeling validated. And really taking that time to rely on your support network for that support. And if someone offers to do something for you, let them. I know as moms, it's easier to do things ourselves because we have a certain way of doing things and we know what our children need. But also being able to let go of some of that control can give us some time to just sit back and reset our mind and our body. The next thing is to create a routine. And when thinking about creating a routine, children thrive on consistency. And I know it's super hard as a single mom because I've been there myself to have that routine and consistency. But once I put that in place, it really did help. I scheduled specific moments in my day for activities that helped me relax and recharge. And that meant giving my children screen time or taking that time on a weekend to go out with my friends. Another thing I did, and I know not everyone can do this, but my mom would watch my children and my dad and I would go to the gym and I would get a lifting session in and I would feel so good when I came home. My endorphins were flowing. I was feeling great and it just put me in that mood. And if you don't have access to go to a gym, get some dumbbells and get a yoga mat and work out at home. That's what I do now, and I really enjoy it, and it really helps me get back to a place of feeling energized, but also getting that stress out of my body. You can even have your kids work out with you, and I know that doesn't always seem like the best idea, but just setting that example for them and just involving them sometimes can bring you back to a peaceful place in your mind. The next one I think is really important for single moms, as well as moms everywhere, but especially the single moms. Practice that self-compassion. Know that you don't have to be both mom and dad. You are solely mom. Be kind to yourself and acknowledge that your achievements are really to be celebrated. Avoid that self-criticism or, that negative self-talk that I think is so easy to get into that routine, and just really focus on the good things that you're doing and the things that you're doing to help your children, because it really does help put things into perspective when you look at your children. And if you're a single mom, don't try to be both mom and dad. Whether you're co-parenting or whether there is not another person to help you in that role, you are the mom. That is solely your job. You don't have to play both roles. You can do what you can do in that moment. Try to just give yourself that compassion and that grace and know that you don't have to replace a father figure. You just have to be a strong mother and a strong woman for your child. I don't know how you guys are going to feel about that one, but that's just something for me is I've had to learn that I never had to replace that. And I still don't have to replace that. You know, I'm remarried and he is their father, but for a long time, I felt like I was doing them a disservice or I was failing them as a mom because I couldn't give them that. And so just really acknowledge your role and don't be too hard on yourself because everything is hard and motherhood in itself is hard. So those single moms are literally rock stars. What are some things that we can do as moms in general, single or not, to find that time to reset? Things like journaling and exercising and going outside, taking your child for a walk. It doesn't have to be a 2-mile walk. It can just be around the block. And, you know, one of my favorite memories is I would always take my kids on a walk all the time. It was like our connection. And when I moved from to, there was a difference in what the nature trails were and what the hiking places were, but simply getting outside and just seeing their faces light up when they had sunshine and they had mud and dirt really reminded me of that. That's where I need to be. I don't need to be rushing. I don't need to be criticizing myself. My children are happy and they're safe. And us as moms need to remember that when we feel that, you know, the laundry is piling up and the dishes in the sink are piling up and oh my God, I need to vacuum and I need to clean the goddamn toilets. And all of that, create a schedule and stick to that schedule. Unless, of course, your child is puking in the middle of the night or your dog shits all over the floor, then obviously clean it up. But we don't need to be constantly doing something. We need to be spending that time with our children, enjoying them, enjoying the moment, and just really taking that time because eventually they'll grow up and they'll be out of the house. And then we're going to wish we had that back. And I talked about this a little bit on that mom guilt episode. Creating a schedule has saved my life. Creating a schedule has saved my life. I have a Google Calendar. A lot of people have seen it and they think I'm a psycho, and that's fine. But I literally have scheduled everything that I need so that way I can have that time to relax or have that time with my husband or have that time with my children. So things like meal prepping. And every Sunday I wash bedding, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I'm doing this. And then for me, Fridays are a quick deep clean in my house, and then I sit down and I give all my attention to my kids and my husband. And whether that's watching a movie or painting or watching them play their games on the screens and stuff, that's just still taking that time to find that balance of my time and then time with my family. My time with my family. I have to have time to myself. I am someone who, if I don't get that time to myself, I lose it and I will just crash. And that's emotionally, physically, I will just fall into a puddle. And so I need that time. And I think that's something that moms, we feel guilty about, but we have to learn to not feel guilty and see it as a time to energize ourselves and just give the same love that we give to our children. Guess what? Our children are going to love our house. They're going to love us. They're going to love our family, whether the house is clean or dirty. Now, I'm not saying to live in a hoarding house or a house full of dog shit on the floor or cat pee on the couch. I'm talking about the dishes in the sink. Can that wait an hour while you go on a walk with your kid or take them to the park? Can the laundry wait to be switched out until after you're done watching the movie and cuddling with your babies? I just think that that's important to look at from that perspective, is things can wait. And I've talked before that we often rush way too quickly as people in everyday life. In order to not rushing through life, focus on prioritizing those important tasks, those important things that you have checkmarked throughout the day. Practice that mindfulness and those setting intentions for yourself, and then set aside that dedicated time for your self-care, as I always preach. And, really manage your schedule effectively. I used to roll my eyes at people who had schedules on their phone or calendars. And then I found out what a Google Calendar is. And I don't know if I was just out with the times and not up to date, but having a calendar and a set schedule has literally changed my life. Also, saying no to unnecessary commitments. It's okay to say no. And I think that's something that we think often can be disrespectful when in fact it's just creating those boundaries and learning what works for you, learning when to say no. So, moms, we need to prioritize. We need to identify the most important tasks and focus on these things first. Even if you have to make a list or have a sticky note sitting on your kitchen cabinet, letting go of those less critical things and letting go of that control. Holy crap, I cannot believe I said that because I'm the most. If you've listened, I have a cleaning problem. I clean obsessively, which is where that schedule has came into play. And so really letting go of those little things and focusing on the most important things to get done through your day can really help you to slow down and prioritize what you need to do. Mindfulness. Practice being present in the moment by paying attention to your thoughts and sensations without judgment. Don't judge yourself. Just live in the moment and feel the emotions that you need to feel, but also take the time to just enjoy it. Enjoy being with your kids. Enjoy being in your home. Make your home your sanctuary. And this doesn't have to mean having expensive things. This can mean having clothes from a thrift store or buying something from the Dollar Tree. Not everything is materialistic and not everything has to be expensive to make you happy. The next thing, limiting multitasking. Focus on one task at a time to increase your quality of life and reduce your stress levels. That has been, again, with the schedule. Just set those to-do lists down, and whether it's bullet points or numbers, limit what you need to do throughout the day and get them done, and then set time again for the next day and finish your tasks. If you are too tired, or if you need to make dinner, or if your kid wants to read a book, prioritize that because that's what's important. Be intentional. Consciously choose to slow down and enjoy and savor those experiences that you have, like taking time to appreciate a meal that you cooked, watching your favorite Disney movie, or just sitting down and talking to your child about their day, which I don't know if it's easy for you guys. Sometimes that, oh, my day was fine, is all you get. Do a digital detox and disconnect from your technology regularly to fully engage in your present moment. I do this a lot where I will either like close down my Facebook or like delete the app or whatever it may be. And I just try to limit my screen time at night. And because we all get sucked down those rabbit holes on TikTok or Facebook. And I don't have Instagram, so I can't relate to that. But really try to detox from what makes you feel pressured to be perfect or gives you that feeling of pressure to live up to a certain standard. And be intentional about who and what you're following on social media because that can also really influence that pressure to feel a certain way or feel like you need to live up to a certain standard. Another thing that you can do is really reflect on your values and consider what truly matters to you in your life and really try to align your actions with those values. And if you have a hard time kind of deciding what those are, or you need proper child parenting guidance and you don't really know where to start, it's okay to seek that guidance and ask for professional help to avoid that burnout. And that's where you really start to build your support system and you ask people who you value in your life for strategies on how they take care of their child that you may be able to align with or relate to. It's okay to not have it all figured out. That is one thing for me as a single mom. I always thought I had to have things figured out. Otherwise, in my mind, I thought I was a failure. And that's just simply not true. And now I know that. But when I was younger, I didn't. And I thought I had to have things figured out right away. And that's really the beauty of motherhood is that we don't have to have things figured out right away. Our children unconditionally love us no matter what. And we deserve and we owe it to ourselves to do the same for us. We should unconditionally be loving ourselves as mothers and treating ourselves with that same attention, respect, and gratitude that we give our children as well. But what happens when we meet somebody and then we have to adjust to a relationship after being single? That can be really hard too, because for me, I had a really hard time, and I still have a hard time letting go of that control and trusting that things are going to be okay. And a lot of that comes from that fight or flight and chronically living in that for so long. But really starting to see that I trust my partner. I'm in a healthy relationship and we have healthy, effective strategies that we use to parent together. And for a long time, that was really hard. It took me a long time to come to terms with that and be able to feel secure in my relationship and also in our parenting dynamic. So I think a lot of that is just really communicating and setting those expectations at the beginning of a relationship. And, for me, I did not introduce my current husband when we were dating to my children right away. I always say that I might get hate for things I say, but honestly, I don't really care, because that's what this podcast is all about, is just hearing my perspective, and maybe somebody relates to it, maybe somebody doesn't. But either way, we shouldn't be judging each other. I just feel that single moms, if you're dating someone, really evaluate and analyze if you want to introduce your child, because whether you do or not, that child's going to see how that person treats you. They're going to see how that person makes you feel. And so really analyze yourself and yet that relationship, because if that relationship is negative, that's going to negatively impact you, not only by yourself, but as a mother. And so really thinking about, how is that fair to your children, and is this the right relationship? And I took a lot of time when I was a single mom, and I did not rush into a relationship. And that, I feel, helped me to gain that confidence and gain that security in knowing what I want and what my next relationship looked like before I even had it, because I knew that I had to create a healthy environment and healthy lifestyle for my children moving forward. So I didn't introduce my kids to my current husband when we were dating right away because of that. I wanted to take that time and build that relationship prior, and take that time to get to know the person that I was dating and set those expectations and have that conversation. I really feel it's important for single moms to really look at who they're bringing into their children's lives. Look at who you're bringing into your life and how they affect you, how they impact you, and what qualities they bring out in you, even, because that's going to affect you. That's going to affect you as a woman, as a mother, and that's going to affect your children as well. If they see a happy, healthy mom, they're going to be happy and healthy kids. And part of that all goes back to taking the time for you and really getting to know what works for you, what you expect out of your life, out of yourself, and out of your future relationships, and be okay with being where you are. That took me a really long time, and I'm still trying to get in that place in my head where right now I'm where I'm at. I can't force anything. I can't fix anything. I can cope with it. I can learn from it, and I can move forward. And I think that's what everybody needs to hear. Remember that you are so amazing and you are trying your best. So stop criticizing yourself. Stop looking at the things you're doing wrong and start appreciating and praising yourself for the things that you're doing right. Have a great day. Bye.